Hello, my name is Gabby and welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, then welcome to my channel, and today's video is going to be my spoiler-free review for Kaiju No. 8. This is a series I started back in 2023. I read the first 3 chapters of it, got distracted by other things, and then just never went back. Until this most recent January of 2024, that is. Mostly because I do have an anime adaptation coming out soon, and I did like those first 3 chapters. I also do have a reading goal set for the year to either catch up to and or finish 5 manga series before the year ends, and we do now officially have 1 series towards that goal. And on that note, everything that I say in this video is going to be in reference to the first 102 chapters and also the first 4 chapters of their spin-off series, but we'll get to that one later. And yeah, things went extremely well, if you couldn't tell from the title of this video. This is one that surprised me, so let's go ahead and get into it. Kaiju No. 8 is an ongoing Shonen Jump series that follows our main character, Kafka Hibino, who wants to chase his childhood dream of defeating Kaiju by the side of his childhood best friend. This was a dream that he had previously given up on, but when the time comes for him to chase his dreams again, he ends up gaining the power to turn into a Kaiju. And let's go ahead and start this review off by talking about our main character, Kafka Hibino. He's your typical Shonen Jump protagonist, but what makes him special and what makes him stand out is that he is in his 30s, which is refreshing, and you do see him take some big brother / mentor roles throughout the series, which is all super sweet. Otherwise, he does have some shonen protagonist tropes. He yells a lot, he's chaotic. I don't want to call him dumb because he's not, but he also does kind of play that role in social settings, and also for comedic relief, and he does have his moment. And he's also super Shonen Jump protagonist when it comes to his passion, his love for his friends, and then also just like his power levels. And speaking of passion, one of my favorite things about this series is that he is a guy who once gave up on his dream. Like, he's almost twice the age of a lot of the people around him who are also going after similar things as him. And I love this message from this series. I always tend to like when a series does a whole don't give up on your dreams thing when it's done well. I think that Kaiju No. 8 does this really well, and I think it also helps to make this guy likable and also really easy to root for. Next up, let's talk about Kikoru Shinomiya. She is one of his younger teammates. She is very much a prodigy, and when she first showed up in the series, I didn't think that I was going to like her, but as we got to know her and her family and just the trauma that really drives her, and we really have seen her grow over the course of the series, and I feel like we've done so more in depth than we have with some other characters, and now she's one of my favorites in a series where I pretty much like everyone. I do also, of course, have to talk about Hoshina because I adore him. He's very funny, a little twisted, fun to read, and just a joy to have all around. He does play a mentor role and has some very fun, very interesting relationships with the other characters, and we do get a larger deep dive into what he has going on later in the series, and again, very good. As for Mina, she's the best friend. I do really like her. I think she's especially fun to watch in combat, which is a good thing because that's pretty much all we get from her until like the later chapters. Like, we only really just started to get to know her, and I'm really loving what I've seen so far. And same for Reino, although he has been around much more than her. He's a character that I feel like I've only really started to appreciate in the more recent chapters, and now I'm just really excited about his character. He does have a rival. It's pretty tropey, but I do like the way that the series handles it because it's a lot more complex than your typical shonen rivalry. It has a lot of heart, it's more wholesome, and both of them are their own characters outside of this. And we are going to talk about rivalries today because this is a series with a lot of them. Not all of them are like the one I just described. Some of them are just for comedy, which is fun, and even the more serious rivalries where the characters are using it as like a main motivation factor are serious, but are also so unserious at the same time because there is a lot of love, a lot of trust, and a lot of respect here, even though not all of the characters or the relationships are the most in-depth thing in the world right now. But I also do feel like the series is making it work with the way things are right now. And they do have a very large cast here, and there's a lot of history between the characters. And I do think that they do a good job at introducing who needs to be introduced when, who needs to stand out when, and who gets to have like their special in-depth moment when. The characters and the relationships do feel very defined, even if we don't always know like the most about them. And again, the series does have a lot of heartwarming, a lot of fun and interesting relationships too. And I'm glad that they got the Haikyuu studio for their anime adaptation in that sense because they do kind of have a similar energy. There are a lot of really fun moments between the characters. Like, the series is a dark, tense action shonen series for sure, but it's also chaotic, and there are a lot of moments that make me laugh and smile. I like their humor, and I think they're balancing it with that darkness well. I also do want to talk about the art style because it leads into my next topic, but I do really love it. From the character designs to the settings, the atmosphere, and especially the action scenes. Every handful of chapters, the series will do a showcase of a few color pages. They're amazing, and they really help to capture the tone of the series. And as someone who loves and adores these characters, it's really fun to see them in color and just like come to life. But everything just looks so clean, which I feel like is a must for this series because they are, again, heavily an action series, where they are oftentimes fighting these very large, very powerful kaiju, and the art style helps capture that power and the intimidation and just the force that they exert. There are some really good fight scenes in here, and each character kind of has their own thing going on and own thing that they specialize in. They all get to shine and have like their cool moments, and again, a large part of that is because of the art style. It's also not always easy to get me into shonen fight scenes. A lot of series have failed to do so, which, you know, that is something that is not always their fault, but this series does have me fully captured. I also just realized I haven't talked about the villain yet, so let's go ahead and do that now. The villain is annoying in the way that villains often are. He's the kind of villain that when he shows up, I kind of just roll my eyes a little bit like, oh, this guy. And we actually don't know too much about him yet, but what we do know has me very curious, and he's also a good strategist too, which also helps make the fight scenes tense and helps draw me into them, so I guess he can have some credit. In all seriousness though, I do think he's a good villain. I think he's good for the series, and I'm curious to see what they do with him. And now let's go ahead and talk about the defense force. Again, it's very large. I feel like they do a good job at establishing who's important to the different divisions and the personalities within them, and there are definitely some personalities for sure. I always find these types of organizations to be very interesting in terms of how they conduct themselves and just what they're doing and their strategies and how it's all paying off and what failures they're experiencing and kind of just how successful they are as a whole. And I feel like this defense force is an interesting mix of all of those things. They have some really cool strategies when it comes to like their advancements in power, but some of those strategies are also kind of messy and chaotic, which also just fits right in with the series. They have their successes, but they also do have their failures. And you do really see the weight of both the successes and the failures on these characters and just the pressure that's on them constantly. The defense force has also been around for a while. Like I said earlier, a lot of these characters have history with each other, but they also do have history with the organization. And it feels like there are like different generations of the defense force, and I love whenever we dive into the past and get to know some of those stories. One, because it further helps explore the characters and their relationships, but it also just helps the world and the lore building and gives you a better understanding of the present timeline, while also making things more exciting or even upping the stakes of the action scenes and also just the character growth. And speaking of power, the power system is actually like the one thing about this series that I'm kind of conflicted about. Because again, they're fighting these high power kaiju, so they also need high power in return. But the series also places a huge emphasis on gaining power and being powerful, specifically on young talent and prodigies. And I can't help but feel like sometimes they use that as an excuse to like skip over hard work and training, because these characters do work hard, they do train, we know this. But despite this, sometimes the series presents it as though like they're just powerful because they're powerful, or they're getting this thing because they are powerful, and they're powerful because they're our main characters and they're young talent and prodigies. So here is something that I never thought I would be saying about a series, but sometimes I do kind of wish they would do a training arc. Because like I said earlier, you see bits and pieces of the training and the hard work, but the pacing just does feel too quick at times, or even skipped over, and every once in a while I kind of just want them to slow down so it doesn't feel like that, because it doesn't always feel like that, and I would say for the most part it really doesn't. But there were just a couple of random moments where I was really caught off guard or even just underwhelmed by something that they said or implied instead of showed us. And here's where I do get conflicted about this, because even though I do occasionally wish that they showed more of the training, I also don't really feel like I need them to start going off on side quests or stories, because I do do really feel like they are really focused in on their main storyline right now, and I like that about them. So I am very okay with what they are actually doing, because I will take a couple of those random moments that I mentioned over getting bored or sidetracked any day. I don't know, maybe they could pull it off, because I do love these characters and I love this series, so I'll read anything from them. But also, why take that risk? So just keep doing what you're doing. As for the story itself, I said in my January wrap-up that it felt like a mix of Demon Slayer and Attack on Titan. I stand by that. I feel like this series has a lot of really cool designs, concepts, and just ideas all around, especially when it comes to the kaiju. And I'm really excited to see more of that. Like I said, I like where the story's going. And on that note, let's go ahead and talk about B-Side really quick, because I feel like they showcased some of this. B-Side so far has been a mostly Hoshina-focused storyline, which... thank you. And it is diving into the past, and specifically diving into his past with the Defense Force, which is letting us dive further to him as a character, although it's nothing that we didn't really already know from the main series. But it is nice to get more in depth and actually see the story. Like I said earlier, I will take anything from the past that they want to give me, because there is so much history and I feel like there's so much potential back there. We're also getting to see a little bit more of Mina, which I enjoyed. And again, we are seeing more of those ideas and concepts just come to life on the page. And we're also getting to see some more of those training scenes from earlier on in this series, which is helping to fill in some of those gaps that I mentioned, so I'm really enjoying this. Overall, Kaiju No. 8 is a series that I feel like my brain just kind of turns off to, which is extra lovely during the fight scenes, but my brain also just like fully focuses in on this and absorbs this series. Like, I spend a lot of time thinking about them when I'm not actively reading it, and it has quickly become not only one of my favorite Shonen Jump series, although it is definitely that, but it's also just one of my favorite series that I'm reading right now. And like I said at the beginning of this video, I don't think that I was expecting this series to be that. I wasn't expecting to love this series as much as I do, or have the investment or attachment levels that I have to it and these characters. It has really surprised me. It's very simple, typical shonen, but it's also so much more and just so good. And it does that typical shonen stuff very well. It has a lot of twists and turns. It has scary, intense moments that feel very smart, so that is mildly stressful for my emotional state, but it's also fun and exciting, and it has my heart. And I'll give this series a more official rating once it's over, but for now, I will definitely be giving Kaiju No. 8 5 out of 5 stars. And again, I am very excited for their anime adaptation. I'm also like mildly stressed about it, because I need it to be good, both for my own emotional state and also because I feel like the series deserves more success and more recognition, and I want them to get those things so bad. Okay, I think that I've said everything that I wanted to say about this series for now, and if I haven't, I'm sure I'll get there at some point. But that is going to be it for today's video. Thank you all so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, and answer the question that'll be around here if you want to do that, and hopefully I will see you here next time. Bye!